Hello, and welcome to the Viking Home Companion and another episode from the good old days. This particular story is called The Boar Hunt. Now, in the Society for Creative Anachronism, a boar hunt does not involve a real boar. We are not hunting down a wild pig, right? The way that a boar hunt works in the SCA is that you take a heavy fighter and you give him two short one-handed weapons, typically either two maces or two short swords or two hand axes, and that person gets to be the boar. And then you have the hunters who are armed with boar spears, 6.5 to anywhere from 6 to 7 feet long. They will have a small cutting head, but they are primarily meant for thrusting. And in fact, some particular boar hunts have a rule that you are only allowed to use thrusting as a hunter. You're not allowed to use cutting. It's not entirely accurate because a boar spear does include a cutting spear head on it. And then finally, in addition to the hunters and the boars, you have hounds. Now, our hounds, again, are not real dogs. Our hounds are unarmored people who go out and they find the boar for the hunters. Now, the restrictions on the hounds are they are only allowed to do two things. They are allowed to bark and they're allowed to point. That's it. Nothing else. Because remember, they're dogs, they're not people. The really cool thing about doing it this way is that it allows you to have children involved. The children get to run around out there and be the hounds. Okay? So this particular story is taking place at some private property up in Angwin, California. And I was getting to be one of the boars in this case. So I was armed with two maces. There were 3 boars in this particular story, and the boars are given a head start. We were given about a 10-minute head start to run out in the woods, find a place to hide, at which point then they release the hounds. And then the hounds get about a 5-minute head start, maybe a little less, 3 to 5 minutes head start, and then the hunters get to go out. And in my case, I went out and I went down a road and then I went up a hill, and instead of trying to hide in a thicket or in some shrubs or whatever else, I just laid down on the hillside. And I'm about a good 20 yards, 30 yards up the hill, so pretty good distance, 50, 60 feet up, which puts me ahead of eye level for most people if all they do is turn and look and not really pay attention up high. Additionally, though, I'm a little camouflaged because the area that I'm in is primarily pine trees, and the entire hillside is covered with dead pine needles, so various shades of brown. Well, I wear hardened leather scale for my body armor, and then I've got hardened leather for my arms, hardened leather for my legs, and all of this is in natural brown. So I am just various shades of brown, just like the hillside that I am on. The only part of me that is not covered in leather is my head, my helmet, and that is a satin finish, mild steel, so it's not really shiny either. It doesn't stand out. In fact, if you look up the hill, as somebody said later, it looked more like a rock than it did a helmet. So I'm laying up on this hillside. They've released the hounds, and I got to tell you, it was really hard not to bust up laughing at the sound of the hounds, because we have adults running around out there, and they sound like various things from anywhere of a St. Bernard to a Basset Hound. But then we've got the kids, and I swear I heard a couple of rabid chihuahuas running around down there barking out. So I was really hard put not to start laughing myself up there. So I'm laying on the hillside, and eventually some of the hounds find one of the boars. And I swear, I'm looking down the hillside at this going on, and I see a boar run by, followed by a bunch of hounds all barking and pointing, and then followed by the hunters right behind them. And then another minute or so later, and the boar comes running back the other direction, followed by the hounds, followed by the hunters. I swear I am hearing the music from Yakety Sax going on in my head, and it was just like a scene from the Benny Hill Show. And I'm still trying hard not to laugh my head off. Now, as this is going on, I see the first boar run by, and then he runs back, and eventually the hunters catch up to him, and they kill him. And a couple of minutes go by, and the second boar runs by, followed by the hounds, followed by the hunters. Now, the thing is, one of the hunters was getting really tired. You could see him kind of lagging behind as the rest of the hunters went by. And eventually, after they go by chasing the second boar down, he really is kind of running out of air, and he kind of stops at the bottom of the hill right below me. And I can hear all the fighting going on when they finally kill the second boar. And so I'm the last boar. Nobody has managed to find me yet. And the guy is bent over, and you can see him kind of going... and he's hanging on to his spear, and he finally catches his breath, and he stops, and he sees that they've already killed the second boar, and he's kind of just looking around, and then finally he looks over at the hill, and he looks up a bit, and he looks a little harder, and then he shades his head as he's looking, and then finally he spots me, and he points, and he yells, and everybody comes running over, and I get up, and I charge down the hill, and I fight, and I die. And later on, I hear that what has happened is that he didn't spot my helm, and he didn't spot me so much. He saw the soles of my boots sticking up, and that was what clued him into that there wasn't something quite right up on the hillside, and that's when he spotted me. So, there you have it, a story about the SCA style of boar hunt from the good old days. Yeah, sure, you betcha.